Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Steve Dolinsky, author of Pizza City, USA, 101 Reasons Why Chicago is America's Greatest Pizza Town, and I'm already getting hungry. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Great to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I am ready.
All right.
Let's begin.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I think this is going to sound a little crazy and maybe cart before the horse, but I think they have to think about promotion. Because even if you have a publisher, like I did, it was a university press, they don't do the greatest job of promoting your book because they're thinking about other books. And you're not, number one on their list because, you haven't sold any books yet for them. So I think a lot of it is, how am I going to promote this? How am I going to market this? What's the marketing plan? Look at the calendar. Think about events that are coming up that might relate to the book. I just really think it's important to think about how the book is going to be marketed. And most people just think about, I want to get it published. But you really need to think about how you're going to get this into people's hands and how they're going to hear about it.
Exactly. And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I think it's why would someone buy this book? You got to think about the why. Why would they buy the book? Why do they need this book? Is it informative? Is it entertaining? Put yourself in the audience's position. That is really the difficult one. I think a lot of publishers don't decide to publish things because they just don't feel like there's an audience for it. And so probably, research the publisher to see what kinds of books they publish, and talk about those, and maybe talk to those authors that have worked with this publisher to find out what kind of experience they had. Because if I'm going to go with, I worked with Northwestern University Press here in Evanston, which is north of Chicago, and I talked to other authors that they have published before I decided to go with them to see what it was like. But the hardest part, I think, is really thinking about, who the audience is going to be for this book.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
I would say, and I got this from a fellow sort of food colleague of mine who wrote a book, and her suggestion was spot on: talk to public libraries. Every community has a public library, and they all have programming people, and the audience tends to be engaged and well-read, and they're slightly on the older side, maybe over 50, but they buy books, and they have great turnout. And I got to tell you, 3 of the events I did that were probably, home runs were all in the northern suburbs of Chicago at various public libraries. Really well attended, really engaging audience, and sold a ton of books.
So what was your strategy? Were you just going to these different libraries, introducing yourself, talking about the book? What were some of the strategies that you did to be able to make these events happen?
Well, I have the advantage in Chicago. I'm on the air. I'm on television here every week. I do the segment called The Hungry Hound on ABC7, and so I'm a bit of a known commodity already. But I would just call up the libraries and introduce myself and tell them about the book I had coming out. We'd send them a galley. We'd send them whatever PDF we'd have, ahead of time, just to kind of get them excited about the book, and then tell them, I'm going to be in the area, this time of the year. What do you think about doing something next to National Pizza Day, or could we do something around, some event that's going on in the community? I'd look at their community calendars and just try to get on their calendar, even if it was 5 months away.
Nice. And then for the event, I'm assuming they did most of the promotion. It was basically their crowd just going, hey, we're going to have this event. This is the book. This is the author. He's featured locally. Is that basically a strategy with that?
Well, yeah, they have their mailing list, of course, and I relied on some of that, but I did a big push myself. I created Facebook events. I promoted it on Instagram, promoted it on Twitter several times, pushed out as much as I could on social media, because I've got people who follow me maybe and they live in those communities, but they want to ask me a question about something unrelated to the book. But the fact that I'm going to be in the neighborhood, maybe that's a good excuse for them to go to this event. And so that happened quite a bit, actually. So I think you can't just rely on the library to promote it themselves. I mean, that helps, but you constantly have to promote things on your own as well.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
I have always been a big fan of MFK Fisher. She was a famous gastronome, wrote about food in the early part of the 20th century. I loved The Art of Eating, which is actually a compilation of several of her shorter works. And it's a must read if you're interested in food at all, actually, because a lot of the giants of our industry, James Beard, Julia Child, all read MFK Fisher. And the thing that I got from this book, there was a part toward the end of it, there's sort of a glossary of eating. And one of the things was about solo dining. And I've always been very sort of self-aware of dining alone in a restaurant, but it made me feel like it's okay. You should be able to cherish the act of eating solo, even more so in like a fancier restaurant, not necessarily something that's really casual or fast food. But I mean, I took that with me to an experience when I was in Paris at a very famous 3 Michelin star restaurant, and I ate a 2.5-hour lunch by myself, and I still remember the lunch to this day. So I think getting the fact that it's okay to eat solo and you can really sort of cherish that moment, I think was important.
Well, going a little bit off topic, I would like to know, of course, you've done this book about pizza. Tell me about your all-time favorite pizza place.
All-time favorite pizza place probably is going to be in New York, and so my Chicago people are going to yell at me for this. There's a place called Lucali, and it's a little nothing joint in Carroll Gardens, Brooklyn, and it looks like it's been there since the 40s. I think it's about 10 years old, but it's the wood burning oven, it's the guys making the pizza, it's the tables that are sort of creaky. It's a fantastic pizza. You cannot get a slice there. You have to order a whole pie. And I think Lucali is a must-visit pizza place for anybody.
Well, and let's be fair to the Chicago crowd. Of course, I'm a lifelong Cubs fan myself, so I'm a little biased. But tell us a little bit about your favorite pizza place in Chicago.
Yeah, and people ask me about Chicago pizza because of the book and because we've got a tour business, Pizza City USA. They want to know about deep dish. And deep dish, while is kind of as our famous sort of claim to fame from 1943, we're really more of a tavern style, thin and crispy pizza town. That has been the style that's been around since the 1920s. So I always recommend two styles of pizza. I'll say a deep dish. I like La Briola quite a bit. And La Briola has a big location downtown near the hotels. And then for tavern style thin, I really love a place called Pat's Pizza, which celebrates its 70th anniversary this year.
Nice. And I'm a little biased myself. I love that tavern style. And my all-time favorite pizza place to this day was Ceres Pie in Seattle, where I had the privilege to have an egg and prosciutto pizza. I never thought it'd actually be a great combination, but to this day, personally, my all-time favorite pizza. So the great thing is, there's awesome pizza places across the entire U.S. and the world.
Well, the combination you get in Chicago is going to be a sausage jardiniere.
Ooh.
Now, pepperoni is the most popular topping in America, with the exception of Chicago, where it is sausage. So it's a bulk sausage with lots of fennel and garlic in it that's pinched and pressed directly onto the raw pie and then baked. So sausage is one component, and then jardiniere is this fantastic condiment we put on our Italian beef sandwiches. It's got pickled chilies and carrots and cauliflower and chili oil, and it's fantastic when baked on a pizza.
Excellent. I'm already getting hungry thinking about it. We'll go into our final question. What is your favorite quote and why?
No surprise here again, but because I'm in that food space, I've always loved a quote by Brodie, the French philosopher. Tell me what you eat, and I will tell you what you are, which has, of course, been shortened to you are what you eat. I've always loved that quote because it says so much about a person. Like when I meet somebody for the first time and they tell me, they only like meat and potatoes, that says a lot about their willingness to try things, as opposed to someone I meet who says, I love Thai food, I love Indian food, I really love Korean barbecue. That's the kind of person I want to hang out with because that's my speed. I want to try new things. I want to explore new places. I want to go, into little dives and little strip malls and different neighborhoods. That's kind of my adventurous spirit. And so I love that quote because it really says a lot about who you are in terms of what you eat.
I love that. I'm the same way. I like to try new things. And of course, I have a Scottish father and an English mother. And when we were in Edinburgh a number of years back, I was there with my sister, and we went to a restaurant in Edinburgh called Ryan's, and they had their world famous haggis. And I thought, you know what? I'm in Scotland. It's in the blood. I got to try it. And it was actually delicious. And it's one of those things where you just have to open your mind to different entrees because there's just so much great food out there across the world.
And of course, there you're washing it down with the beautiful whiskey made from Islay.
Actually, it was with the house cider, but it was still pretty darn good.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, Steve,
that sounds pretty good.
I want to thank you for being a guest on the show today. This has been a pleasure. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Just my name, Steve Dolinsky, and it's DOLINSKY.com.
Excellent. Well, Steve, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author and food journey ahead.
Thanks, Paul. My pleasure.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.